What does it mean to overexpose a character? In DC, we've got Batman Who Laughs, and a lot of people think that character is overexposed. But what does that mean? And if a character is popular, shouldn't you overexpose that character? Hey there, this is Perch. One of the things that has been around in comics for a while, and I think you've seen it play out with characters like Deadpool or Wolverine, certainly over in Marvel. I think there's been comments that Batman himself has been overexposed, but it's this idea that characters, the comic companies, the publishers, they can't help themselves. Whenever they get even a minor success with a character, they overexpose that character, meaning they just keep pumping out titles. It's not enough to just publish one book. We're going to publish 10 books, and we're going to just keep kind of milking this one until it's dry. And I think it's an interesting topic, because on one hand, comics being the industry it is, where there's stories being told, and the stories are produced, let's just say normally monthly. Yeah, there's a million other ways this can be done, but let's just say in a normal world, we've got a monthly comic. And so if you think about it, that's not a lot of time. I mean, that's not a lot of material going out. But comics, if a character is popular, what will happen is they'll do, a spin-off and another spin-off, and you'll do, Deadpool and Deadpool's secret missions, and then Deadpool's team of Deadpoolers, and then just, and pretty soon you've got a lot of Deadpool books coming out every month. Or you have Spider-Man, you have the Amazing Spider-Man, the Spectacular Spider-Man, you have Spider-Man's buddies, and you just get all these Spider-Man books. And I think that there becomes certainly an oversaturation in the market, where you've just got too many books of the same character, and then it starts to erode all of them at once. But generally speaking, I think in comics, because of the publishing schedule, because comics are only coming out once a month, I think that you've got a lot of latitude to basically publish as much as what will sell. Keep it going. If these were all coming out the same week, or it was like a television show where you had like a weekly series, and then suddenly you've got 2 or 3 weekly series, I think that oversaturation becomes kind of a little bit more prominent. But in comics, based on the schedule and the frequency, it only really feels like oversaturation if you really pay attention to it, and if you compare it to everything else being published. But overall, um, you know, comics need sales, and comics needs to respond to things when they're popular. And one of, I'd say, the deserved criticisms of comics is that they often don't listen to what fans are asking for. They either ignore them, or they respond too late. Like, maybe Deadpool is popular, but then we don't really get to doing much with that character until you know 4 years later, and by that point the character is cooled, and it's people have moved on. I think that's been a pretty common scenario we've seen in a lot of places. I mean, comics, again, being what they are, typically comics are commissioned, and creative teams are put on, and ideas are formed, and the publishing business doesn't turn on a dime. That's one of the ways where digital could actually be pretty impactful in comics, is if you had a really solid digital platform, and you had real creators, not kind of up and comers or not untested artists, but you had real kind of big name creators doing digital work. Digital would be an area where you could shorten that up a little bit. Still have to draw the works, still have to write the works. There's still time involved, but you could be faster to respond to things. But an example is kind of like the Batman Who Laughs. So this is a character that spun out of Metal, and then after Metal showed up in Justice League, and after Justice League showed up in I think Batman Who Laughs, a series, and then now is kind of the main protagonist behind Batman Superman. And so you've got a lot of Batman Who Laughs kind of showing up in different forms. And, overall, this has been, the response to that has been kind of, people either like the character, like kind of what's going on, or, I would say more commonly, I hear more people who dislike the Batman Who Laughs character than like. I would say on the whole, there's a lot more no's than yeses, if you will. And yet we're seeing a lot of him come out. And I think the whole Batman, Superman, the infected, the new Secret Six of infected characters. Here's a question for you though, DC. I mean, this is where I think in comics you never want to feel if you got this super clever villain or you got this villainous plot. And I think it's worse when the villain in question this time is like an evil Bruce Wayne. So he's like, oh, this character is super bright, an amazing tactician. What if Batman was bad? That's who this character is. Just a really bad Batman. And it's like if you had this virus, that could infect, various heroes and things. Why are you? Why stop at six? I know there's a real answer for this, but why not? Just hell, man. Go for all of them. Give 40. Like I don't get this like ha ha ha. I'm going to unleash a supervillain plot that will turn the DC universe up on its ear, and I'm going to infect six characters. It's like okay, all right, you're being stupid now. You're not super smart villain. You're infecting six. But anyway, I think clearly this is a character DC has some weight behind. The character, I'm totally speculating here, so I may be wrong, but a character was a creation of Scott Snyder as part of Metal, and I think it was a character Scott Snyder had some, let's say, feeling for, or really liked, because we've seen that character now pop up in kind of the last three, the Justice League book and the Batman Who Laughs series with Jock was all Scott Snyder. So I mean, this is Scott Snyder's kind of gift to the DC universe, if you will. And not a ton of other creators have taken advantage of that, but more are now kind of jumping on board, and they're going to do something with this character. But what do you do? So you have this kind of new villain, new epic villain. What if Batman was evil, coming out of Metal, and you want to take advantage of that? You want to strike while the iron's hot. If it's Batman but evil, then it really wouldn't make a lot of sense for this character to kind of come onto the scene and then the Scarecrow kind of disappear for 4 years, and then there's a storyline with him. I mean, would he show up like that? Probably not. I mean, and this is always one of the things that I think has been awkward about kind of villainy in comics in general. Is I think if you're a kind of a homicidal, kind of crazed villain, I think you'd just be causing trouble all the time. You're one of two states. You're either in jail or you are blowing stuff up. And this is what I kind of never quite understood about. I mean, it's not that I didn't understand. I always disliked about some parts of both, more Superman. So Batman, at least he had Arkham. So the villains would get captured and rounded up, and they'd go off to Arkham, and then somebody would escape and then cause some trouble, and then back into Arkham they would go, and so you had that kind of dynamic going on. But and that's fine. But in Superman, the characters often didn't go to jail. Like Superman would stop somebody, and then the villain would like slink off into the night, and then the villain would just kind of be gone for like 2 to 3 years, and then he'd come back with an evil plot. And it's like, wouldn't the villain just be like trying something new right away? I mean, if the villain got away, it's like, I'm gonna just lie low for 3 years. That doesn't make any sense to me. I think I'd love to see this attempted in a comic, and I think Invincible kind of did this a little bit, but where the villains are out there and they're just attacking all the time. The villains are just constantly blowing stuff up all the time, and the hero basically is constantly trying to round them up, take them to jail, stop their plot, and everything else. But there's no time to take care of all these things. So the hero is like tired, and he's screwing up, and he's it'd be an interesting thing where the hero's like, he's just getting overwhelmed, because the hero still wants to try and do the right things, not blow up the city, not have a family life or whatever. And the villain, meanwhile, has no social life and is just destroying stuff constantly. I think that I don't know. I'm not a comic writer. This is why. But anyway, overexposure is a funny thing, because a lot of people complain about it, and yet it's no it's been true from a sales perspective that when if DC could print 12 Batman titles a month, they would do it. And in most cases, the overexposure, the quote unquote overexposure, it doesn't actually impact comics negatively. So some might point to Deadpool. Hey, there was so much Deadpool out there, and it brought all the Deadpool titles down. I think the evidence suggests that if you only had one Deadpool title, it would have gone up and down in the same rate. It's not like if you publish four Deadpool books or one Deadpool book, the four Deadpool books are only making a quarter of what the one Deadpool. There is always the main book and then the other books, but it's not. It doesn't necessarily work like that. Characters that are popular, fan favorites, they find a way. They find an audience, and that's it works. That's what happens. It doesn't eat amongst itself, which I know is counterintuitive to kind of traditional logic that a lot of us have heard about how overexposure and those kinds of things work. But it's not the case. It's actually pretty much the market will bear as much as it will bear, and Jim Shooter kind of, I don't want to say legendarily, but he knew this, because if there was a character that would kind of emerge as a breakout character, he would pump it, you know, for all it was worth, and get money out of that character before it cooled down again. Because like anything, these characters are often built off of trends or certain factors that come and go. It's not as simple as if a character is popular today, it'll still be popular 10 years from now. In a lot of cases, that wasn't the case. So there was definitely a strike while the iron's hot. Unfortunately, that also creates a lot of uneven comic storytelling for sure, where you get kind of the same character just used over and over and over and over, and that doesn't make any sense. But anyway, that's my general thought on overexposure. You may have a different opinion, and chances are you do. I think the idea of this character is overexposed and they're using this character too much is a pretty common one. A lot of people have definitely centered around that particular viewpoint. But just from the comic shop perspective, from sales, it doesn't necessarily work that way. Oh, here comes an ambulance. I guess I should stop. I always wonder if there's really somebody in the back here, or if it's just a donut run. I picture donut run like most of the time, don't you? I mean, yeah, I'd like to think I was a better person, but I'll just be honest. I have a siren like that I could turn on, and then people would just pull over, and I'd be able to just blaze through wherever I went. I would leave that thing on and never turn it off. I mean, I, yeah, I'm not a comic writer. I'm not a ambulance driver. There you go. All right. Hey, like, subscribe, comment below. Would love to hear your thoughts on the matter. What's a character that's been overexposed, or missed the boat, where they were popular and they missed it? What are characters like that? Let me know your comments below, and tell a friend. Follow me on Twitter at Comic Perch. Send me nice suggestions like this one, and I'll talk about it. And thanks for listening.